Well, hey, folks, welcome to this episode of the Texas Titans podcast. I am glad to bring to you today's Texas Titan Spencer Bynes. Spencer Bynes is a self-professed leadership development fanatic who is obsessed with helping individuals realize their highest potential. He has over 25 years of experience working with senior level leaders of Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies in diverse industries and has broad experience and skills in areas critical to enhancing leadership, team, and organizational performance. Spencer's business background includes his current role as Vice President of Business Development for LHH, most recently as the co-founder and managing partner of Ascendo International. He has held various leadership roles with Coca-Cola North America, the University of Texas at Austin, and Clear Channel Worldwide. He is the proud father of 2 daughters and has been blessed to be married to his wife of 25 years. He grew up in Corsicana, Texas, and is a proud Sam Houston State University grad. Folks, please enjoy my conversation with today's Texas Titan, Spencer Bynes. All right, Spencer. Well, okay, now congratulations. The red button has been pushed, so you are now officially a Texas Titan.
I appreciate that.
Well, man, first of all, I got to ask, how's the family and how's everything going during this crazy coronavirus time for you guys?
Hey, I appreciate you asking that. I mean, everybody's good. I have 2 daughters. One is in graduate school in Boston. She's at Berkeley School of Music and at the Boston Conservatory, I should say. And so she's sheltering in place in Boston and doing great. And then I got a senior here that's, I think out of ideas on how to entertain herself. And, it's so funny. We had a conversation last night around just, that you think that generation is so connected to technology and they text each other when they're in the same room.
Right.
Last night, she's like, I just want to see my friends. I just want to hug my friends. Mm-hmm. And so, that human interaction is irreplaceable.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting conversation to have with her. And, my wife, I tell everybody I've worked from home for a long time. And, but now I have a lot more office mates with me.
Right.
sharing the printer, sharing, the space, which is different.
Well, I'm kind of in the same boat, man. I've got one that's home from Tuscaloosa and one that's home from Boulder. And, I guess it was the first night that they were home, my oldest, who is a social butterfly, to the nth degree.
Right.
All of her friends were meeting up, and I found out about it, and I said, yeah, no, you're not going. And she said, well, we all know each other. I was like, yeah, no, that's not how this is going to work, And it took them a while, but I tell you, I'm like you. I work from home a lot, like I mentioned before we got on. I'm talking to you from what I call my upper room. It has my library. It's got my podcasting stuff. I spend so much time here, so my life's kind of remained the same. But the girls have come home, and so it's like this big, long, extended holiday. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of enjoying it because, especially my youngest daughter that's home from Boulder, she is an incredible cook. And so she cooks for my wife and I, every night. And they're these just incredibly decadent meals. I'm like, well, if we have to suffer through this, I guess we will.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah, that's funny you say that because we are living parallel lives because that's the same. My wife is a great cook and my oldest daughter has picked that up. And, of course, she's a lot more creative in what she's exploring. And so you get into that rut of the meals you usually eat.
Right.
And when they come home, they whip up all this stuff, and I'm like, wow, that was actually pretty good.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see. I haven't heard much out of Alabama, but CU, Boulder, they're kind of hedging towards. You can tell. I'm going to be surprised if the kids get to go back in the fall, and that's going to be interesting. I don't know how that's all going to play out, and I know I can tell you as a parent. I don't know about you, but first of all, higher education. I question it now, its value and the ROI more than ever. What it's costing us to put these girls through University of Colorado and the University of Alabama, and I'm sure you get it, and it's like it's so astronomical. And now at least your daughter that's at the Boston Conservatory, that's a specialization. Okay, that's a whole different animal. Well, you got kids like mine who are just going to get a degree, hoping they get jobs whenever they graduate. It's really hard. And then now whenever you see that it's all happening online through Zoom and that sort of thing, which is kind of how the world is moving, I don't know, man. I think this is a good thing. It's really exposing, and that sounds like a bad word, but it's shedding light on higher education in a
Absolutely.
way that has needed to happen for a long time. So I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how that all plays out after this.
I totally agree. I mean, I spent 10 years in higher education and college admissions, and so I would agree with you. And I was reading some articles around, apprenticeships are starting to really gain a lot of validity of like,
Yeah,
hey, come work with me for 3 or 4 years, and you can get real job experience
yeah.
instead of learning, stuff that's going to be obsolete by the time you graduate. So
Well, Spencer, we were talking about it before we got on, like with the podcast. I mean, I was a journalism undergrad major. And I graduated college in '97. So back in the day, if you wanted to pursue a career in journalism, broadcast journalism, or print,
mhm.
then you had to just start at these little podunk newspapers
Yeah.
or radio or TV stations, and you may work 5 or 6 years and hope to just create enough tape that you could send it out and move from a market like my hometown of Sulphur Springs to maybe Nacogdoches, then maybe Tyler, and then maybe San Antonio, and then maybe Dallas or Houston. It's just a long road. Now, if you've got a microphone and a computer, you can be a broadcast journalist. It's really,
Absolutely.
and I explained that to my oldest, who I mentioned is at Alabama. She went in with the idea that she wanted to be in sports broadcasting. I was like, well, you're going to the University of Alabama. One of her best friend's brother plays for Alabama. So I said, so you've got some access. Build your social media. I'm that dad that tells my kids, hey, think outside the box. Go out there and hustle, and cut. Skip the line. Go directly to your audience. Go build your audience now. Don't wait for some degree to kind of you say, okay, now it's time for you to go pursue. So.
Yeah.
I think that you think you're right. There's going to be a lot more apprenticeships. There's going to be a lot more practical application. And then these trade school and technical schools and community colleges where you can go and be laser focused on the actual skill that you want to learn. I think those are just going to be invaluable.
Yeah. Maybe we are the same person in a different universe because my youngest daughter got admitted to Texas State.
Uh-huh.
UT was her first choice, but they did the whole, what is it called? I forget what the program is called, the transfer program.
Yes, yes.
So I was like, don't do that. I mean, your first year in college should be awesome. And so she's going to Texas State, but she's going to be communications and PR.
Really?
So we're having that conversation with you, just having like building your social media and I mean, she just taught me how to do a TikTok over the break. And are you familiar with that?
Dude, I'm in it, man. As a matter of fact, probably my highest viewed video was my girls and I over the Christmas break. Absolutely dancing to a Michael Jackson song. So
Oh my gosh.
I've been indoctrinated to the TikTok world, my brother.
Well, I'll do you one better. So my first TikTok video, of course, I'm always brand minded, right?
Yep.
So I was like, hey, our company just rebranded our logo. We got new colors. I said, so I want to do this TikTok with my logo where I'm going to be in my golf attire and then I'm going to change into my golf branded stuff, and
Right.
so we're just messing around. And of course, she's directing me, loves telling me what to do, and does a great job with this TikTok. So I sent it to my colleagues as a joke, saying, hey, check this out. Well, this morning my country manager just sent it to the president of the company saying, hey, we should try to do a TikTok challenge just to, with the company.
Yes.
Check this out.
I love that.
So,
I love that.
So I just told my daughter, I was like, yeah, your TikTok videos over in Switzerland now with our president of our company. And she's blowing up, just excited about it.
Well, and that's how it starts. I mean, that's awesome, man. Well, good. And hey, good for the country manager to be to have that creative ability to understand the importance. Because I'm telling you, man, the guys and gals out there in senior level positions that are just kind of poo pooing this stuff, it's going to be to their own detriment. I mean, this is where the world's going, and either you're in or you're out, whether you like it or not. And so that's the thing. You'll appreciate this. So it was about a year ago that Gary Vaynerchuk started talking about TikTok. So generally when Gary says to check something out, I've like, that's how I kind of stay up, So I go check it out, and I asked my daughters. I said, hey, do you guys, use TikTok. Are y'all on TikTok? And well, no, Dad, not really. That's like for junior high kids to make videos. I said, okay. I said, well, mark my words, you're going to be on TikTok. It's going to be huge. Just watch. And like, okay, Dad, whatever. It was probably 3 or 4 months later. My oldest, who's always pretty critical about anything that Dad suggests, she says, "Okay, Dad, I just got a TikTok." And now the youngest, she could care less. She'd rather be cooking, and listening to music. But Rylan, my oldest, she is, I mean, hardcore TikTok, looking for the likes, looking for the views, doing it. So you wanting to be TikTok famous. So I'm like, yep, see, your old man knew something, huh?
Yeah, that's great. Kind of funny. Great story.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about let's talk about who you are and what you're about, Spencer. And I know that another thing we've got in common. We're old Southland Conference boys. You got that Sam. I'm with your rival SFA, baby. So we got that. So tell me a little bit about the early stages of your career, because just to set this up now for the audience, your entire career, for the most part, has pretty much been in that lane of people development, essentially. People development, leader development, talent acquisition, / recruiter, so you've always been attuned to looking for human capital and the talent within. So tell me, how did that begin? And then let's just get into kind of some nuts and bolts of leadership and the not only just, if we'd had this conversation 2 months ago, I would have asked you about the changing landscape of higher education and the recruiting process and the way the workforce is changing. But now, after this coronavirus deal, we got a whole nother topic along those lines to talk about. So just kind of take me back to the beginning of how you started your career and how it went into this lane of people.
Wow. Okay. So I'll try to condense this down into something bite-size of, I always knew that I was going to be a coach. I thought it was going to be actually an athletic coach, but when I got out of athletics, right, probably on my second year in college, I was like, this isn't for me. I got into business and I was like, man, I wonder if it'd be cool to be a business coach, but it really didn't exist back then. And so I got into college admissions and was a natural fit for me. Loved, Sam Houston, spent a great deal of time there afterwards and became assistant director of admissions there, and then got recruited by University of Texas. Texas was starting these new satellite recruiting centers that had really never been done before. That's how I met our mutual friend, John Atkins, and opened up satellite recruiting centers for them. And that was such an incredible job because of the people that I met. 4 different university presidents, not only at UT, but other institutions. And I said, I want to be a university president. And then I met university presidents. I was like, nah, I don't want to be a university president. And I was actually at a function with Dr. Berdahl, who was the UT president at the time. And I met the head of HR for Coca-Cola, who invited me to be a speaker at an event, which I didn't want to do, but got talked into it by Dr. Berdahl. You don't say no to the UT president.
Yeah, right.
And so I went to the speaking engagement where I was talking about college admissions and, designing your future, blah, blah, blah. And the head of HR for Coca-Cola was in that audience with his son at the time.
Okay.
And afterwards said, you ever thought about recruiting on the corporate side? And I was like, well, gosh, no, I never thought about that. And he says, well, you should think about it. And did an interview, and then they started talking about stock options and, and bonuses. And I was like, wow, we don't have that in higher ed. Maybe I should consider this. This is sounding really great. And went on board with Coca-Cola and started doing talent acquisition and corporate recruiting for the Minute Maid organization here in Houston. And that was an amazing job, and got a lot of exposure to senior level executives, moved up pretty quickly and started recruiting marketing and sales for them. And it was just, again, a very natural fit for me, and found myself, as I was talking to managers, going off script of like, hey, I'm not just here to fill your job. Let's talk about why I'm filling this job again.
Right.
After we just filled it last year, and started coaching them on how to really build their team, how to look for the right level of talent, and how to look at their own talents and their gaps and say, you need to fill your gaps with the people you're bringing on board. There'll be a more cohesive team. So made a natural transition into talent management and organizational development, and then was recruited away from Coca-Cola to be a director of talent acquisition for Clear Channel Media.
Okay.
Which was funny because it was right down the street from Coca-Cola, or from Minute Maid at the time. So that was the first interview I ever walked to the interview. And at the time, Coca-Cola was going through downsizing. 40 people. We had 40 people on my team, and we went from 40 to 5.
Oh wow.
And then I was asked to move to Atlanta at the time, and my wife really didn't want to move to Atlanta. I liked being married, so I needed to find another job.
Right.
My boss at the time was going to be their position was going to be eliminated, and at the time he or she went to interview at Clear Channel. She came back and said, Spencer, I just met a room full of people who are just like you, loud, obnoxious, you know, love to talk to everyone, never met a stranger. She said, go interview for that job. If you don't get that job, I'll buy you a steak dinner. If you get that job, you buy me a steak dinner.
Nice.
Ended up buying her steak dinner and got the job with Clear Channel. And that was a whirlwind. Went in as the director of talent acquisition. That's where I started doing a lot of executive coaching. Clear Channel had a corporate university, and that was one of the coolest teams I ever worked on. We had 15 coaches, executive coaches, my team of 7 on the talent acquisition side and talent management. We did all of our own curriculum development, so we had curriculum development folks, incredible team of folks. That lasted for about six and a half years, and then private equity came in and bought Clear Channel, which is now called iHeartRadio.
Right.
I saw the birth of that, helped hire the guy who started iHeartRadio at Clear Channel, watched that evolve, and then when private equity came in and bought Clear Channel, that's when I started my own company.
Okay.
And we had a company called Ascendo International, which was just purchased by Talent Plus a year ago. I should have stayed on just like one more year. And we did executive search, and we did executive coaching and leadership development. So you're right. The span of my 30 years of work has been in different facets of development. I've always felt like a natural coach and catalyst for people. I always see the talent in individuals and want to help them grow. That's why I'm fascinated with, Jordan is a person I'm just fascinated with.
Yeah.
His work ethic and his ability to get the most out of people.
Yeah.
I'm just really intrigued about that, and that's what I feel like when I look over the course of my year of what I've been able to do is really work with people, and people that I would never have worked with. I worked with a hedge fund guy. I've worked with guys who write programming to build financial plans, and I was like, why are you asking me to be your executive coach? And it's like, well, I don't know the people side of it. And so I've been exposed to a lot of different individuals that I never would have.
Now,
so hopefully that was short enough.
No, it's perfect, because that gets into kind of what I love to discuss on the podcast, which, okay, so you've had the exposure to so many senior level executives. And to me, I think that exercises a great deal of humility when because I've done some executive coaching as well. And when you have that senior leader come to you, and you're talking about people that are pulling down, sometimes, millions of dollars a year, and yet are still willing to say, I need more help in my own personal development. I admire that a great deal. What would you say throughout your career has been some of the common denominators amongst the senior leaders that have made them successful? Because I know it's never just IQ, it's never EQ. It's you can it may and there's so many different leadership styles. There's some that's the tyrant, some that are the people that the inspirational leader. What have you seen is the common thread amongst the most of them? And then if you had to, like, let's just say that I called you up and said, Spencer, man, we're starting an international search for a CEO. Our company is 25 years old. It's not real seasoned, but it's kind of up at the top of the life curve. So we're 25 years old, and we need an executive that can inspire, can lead. Kind of give me what that looks like. What is that prototype?
Wow, what a great question. If you lined up 10 executive coaches, they would probably give you 10 different answers. So this is Spencer's answer based on who I've been exposed to. And I would say two things that really jump out at me of leaders that I've been around, that I admire and that I've worked for, and CEOs or senior level folks that I've coached. The one foundational thing is self-awareness. The ones who I think really lead very well have a great deal of self-awareness of what they're really good at and what they're confident in. This is what I can do and I'm really good at. And they know what they're not good at, and they're okay with it. I think that's the distinguishing factor.
Love that.
They're okay with it.
Yeah.
And they're able to delegate that out to say, I'm not going to try to be okay at it or average at it, because I'm obsessed with being excellent. So I'm going to bring someone in who is excellent at that and then delegate that to them.
I love that.
And I think what you mentioned is the humility of, I don't know it all. I had the great fortune of working for a guy named Don Knaus, who was the CEO for Minute Maid before we integrated into Coca-Cola. Former Marine, had an incredible memory. He would meet you today, and 5 years from now, he would be able to tell you who you are, where you met, and what you talked about. It was unbelievable. But what I loved about him is he lived it in terms of what he said he believed, and what you saw is exactly what he did.
Right.
And he was a master at putting teams together to execute. But this guy was so comfortable in his skin that he had a presence when he walked into the room. And, and he also had this thing about, you wanted to do your best around him. So those two things, to me, that self-awareness and humility, are the common threads that I see. And then I think there's other things around their ability to sift through the noise, and really, people are coming at them with agendas all the time.
Right.
Being able to really discern, that power of discernment is huge. So those would be my top three.
Well, let me tell you something. You touched on something, just kind of confession time. It took me years to truly get good at the second part of your first one, which was the self-awareness. I always felt like I was rather self-aware, but I lived for years thinking that, okay, one, I need to do it all. Like when I bought my first company at 28, which, a funny sidebar about that, John Atkins actually handled the acquisition of, when he was back at Andrews and Kurth. So I had this massive Houston law firm handling this tiny little acquisition, thanks to John Atkins, because there was no other attorney in M&A that was going to handle it. So I'm sure I'm sure he bragged with all the partners, hey, I just helped this guy acquire a real estate brokerage in East Texas. Anyway, but whenever I bought that company, man, I thought I had to do it all. And if I wasn't good at something, I thought I had to learn and get good at it. And here's where that will bite you in the rear. So I'm doing my payroll taxes because I'm thinking, no, I'm going to cut the checks. I'm going to do payroll. I'm going to understand every facet of my business. And one day, and I set up the EFTPS, online site, deal to go on and make my payments online. And I do it. Even though I was such a small business, I could have done it quarterly or monthly or whatever it was.
Sure.
Every time I cut a paycheck, I went ahead and made a deposit to the IRS. Well, I get a letter in the mail that was very, very nice and well written, explaining to me that I was about to have my bank accounts garnished and my doors locked and my assets seized because what I was doing, I was making the payments, but I was not filing quarterly reports. So, and this is true, I'm not being sarcastic on this point. A very, very nice lady that used to work for the IRS here in Tyler at the local office, she called me in and she came to my office and brought me a little form to fill out every week and walked me through it. Her name was Lee. I can't recall her last name, but she was so kind to me. But that was a perfect example of me doing something that I should have never been doing to begin with. And now at 45, I'm finally willing to say, because I used to also think it was a sign of weakness, right? To say that I can't do something or that I can do it, but I'm not good at it. I thought, no, that's a sign of weakness. I'm supposed to be good at everything. And now, like with my wife, I will tell Jemlyn now, I'll have no problem saying, hey, you're better at this than me. You do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do. I'm terrible with directions. I mean, I'm terrible. I'm very directionally challenged, and I'll admit that now. And so I love that you said it because that is one of the keys, and because I have become so self-aware of those things I'm not good at, and then gained the confidence over the years to admit those things and let other people do them. It's one of the first things I tell young people whenever I go to speak is the first thing you need to do is have a very, very strong sense of who you are, and if you find something you don't like, be willing to attack it and deal with it. Or if you find something you're not good at, be willing to either, if you must get good at it, go be willing to pay the price to master that, or determine to yourself you're just going to go into a direction that doesn't include that thing because it will only hinder all those other things which you're actually good at, right?
Yeah, that's right. And when I got certified in Gallup Strengths, it was like this mind-blowing thing of confirming everything that instinctively I believed in, and because I have a healthy ego as well, and Gallup's philosophy is on really identifying what you're really strong at, forget about what you're not really good at, and find ways to do more of what you're really good at.
Yeah,
and that philosophy has just been tremendous for me personally, and then it has helped me in coaching others to really let go of some of those things around flipping the script on them, really, of like, look, do you want to be average? Because this is not something that comes natural to you. So more than likely, the law of averages, you're going to probably get to a point where you're competent, but you don't excel at it.
Yeah,
because you don't like it.
Right.
And so that for me has helped me be able to let go of some of those things. And then when I started my company, I quickly understood what I was really good at, and I hated the financial side of it. And I had a great partner that we really complemented one another.
Okay. Well, no, I want you to finish that thought because that's exactly where I was going to go next is to your entrepreneurial venture. But finish that thought about having a good partner.
Well, I was going to say I was the string on her balloon. She was the idea person. She was the innovator. She managed the finance piece. But I was always how are we going to make money? How are we going to execute? We can, but should we?
Right.
Where I didn't keep her from having those ideas and really, launching them, but always keeping at least a foot on the ground to go, okay, this is awesome, but we need to make money.
Right.
I learned a lesson when I worked at Coca-Cola. I had an amazing boss who sent me. I was doing recruiting for all the plants, and at the time, Minute Maid had come out with this contour patch. Or pouch. I don't know if you remember that.
Uh-huh.
Our high C pouch. We were competing against Capri Sun. It was thought to be really innovative and creative. And I had to hire a couple of plant managers out in Waco, and so I went to the plant to talk to them, kind of get immersed in the environment to kind of really understand how to coach that manager on who to hire. And they took me on the floor, and there was all of this aluminum packaging waste on the floor. And I'm talking to the line manager, and he's like, those damn marketing people, they come up with these damn ideas. And, look at all this waste that's on the ground, and the line keeps locking up. And it's like, all great ideas aren't necessarily great if you can't execute them.
Yeah.
That has stuck in my brain, of you got to vet it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that transitioned into, the reason I tell you that is that transitioned into business for me of, I'm an idea guy. I could, keep a journal of ideas that I come up with all the time. But, so I know not to kill the idea, just have the idea, put it out there. But at some point you have to vet it.
Yeah.
And that helped me be successful in business for 7 years before I got recruited away to come work where I'm working now.
Well, okay, so and here's another similarity in our background. So I also worked for a very large Atlanta-based company, Home Depot. So and that was kind of, and literally, so I guess it sounds to me like you went from Coca-Cola, then to Clear Channel, and then into entrepreneurship. Did I get that sequence right? Okay. So I went directly from Home Depot. I was commuting to Bynes every week because my office was there at Paces Ferry in Atlanta, and I was living in Houston, and so I was going back and forth, which was way too much. I never got to see my girls, and so then that's whenever I just started looking for a company to buy, and ended up buying real estate brokerages, and so. Tell me this, once you made that move into entrepreneurship, help the listener who thinks they want to be, and I have this conversation every single time I get an entrepreneur on here, because there are people listening, Spencer, you know this, that are working for, it doesn't get more Fortune 500, all American, marquee company than Coca-Cola. So they're working there, they're working for the 800-pound gorilla, and they think they want to be an entrepreneur. But you're right. But I explain, I used to think I wanted a motorcycle until I got on one, and I realized I liked the idea of me on a motorcycle much better than the reality of me on a motorcycle.
That's right.
Talk about what it's like when all of a sudden, every time you turn the light on, you realize that's going to be a bill coming, and every time you put paper in the copier, that's going to be a bill coming.
Oh yeah.
Talk about your entrepreneurial experience.
I was listening to one of your podcasts, and the gentleman you were talking to, you guys were talking about The Matrix.
Yes.
Which is one of. I think you were saying at the time that was one of your first times watching.
Yeah,
it.
That's right.
And I have seen that movie 1,000. It's one of my favorite movies. It's 1,000 times I've seen it. So I liken it to the being unplugged from the Matrix. So any listener who hasn't seen that movie, sitting in the big chair or moving into the entrepreneurial world, there's so many things you don't know because you don't know. Mm-hmm. And you definitely, even when we had the conversation with a business partner, we talked about, I was like, look, I'm all in. I'm burning my boat. There is no way home unless we build another boat through this business.
Yeah.
And so that's how committed I was to it. And then as we got into it, there were things I knew I was good at. I knew, I hadn't been in a sales role, but I had recruited all levels of sales, all levels of marketing, and recruiting is sales. And you have two clients in recruiting, because you have the person taking the job and the person hiring the person, and you have to sell both entities on this opportunity.
Right.
And you have to overcome objections, all those things. So I knew I could sell.
Right.
Because I've been doing it for many years. And so there's transferable skill sets. And so going in, I knew, well, I can go out and sell this stuff, and I'm not selling stuff I haven't already done. We're selling recruiting services, we're selling coaching and development programs. I know those inside and out. So I knew I was going into a field that there wouldn't be a ramp up there. So I had a lot of preconceived notions around what I was good at that in reality, once I got into it, like you said, we had a team of 7 folks, and they weren't on fire like we were in some cases about growing this business.
Right.
And it started to change my viewpoint of some of those individuals. It's like, hey, if you're not committed, you gotta get on board. You gotta be 24/7. And I started contradicting all of those things that in terms of coaching, developing, because of what you're saying, right? Of everything costs. You want to know where? We want to put this program together. It's going to cost how much?
Yes.
Have you done a cost analysis on this? Right. The material costs that we're going to have? I was like, why do you need to go back again to see this client? Why didn't you ask those questions? I mean, I started getting caught up in all of those things. And so I was doing things that, one, I wasn't really good at.
Mm-hmm.
And but 2, that I didn't like to do.
Yeah.
And so if for people who think they're going to be an entrepreneur, when you become an entrepreneur, you have to know all facets of that business.
Right.
I think, or you're going to get, somebody's going to steal your shirt.
Yeah.
And so you do have to have a level of competence for it. But I think you also have to have, the one word is that I remember is capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And you only have so much of that.
Yeah.
And what we got into in a service-based business was we'd go out and we'd hunt down the business, which we were really good at, and we'd get it. In some cases, we get business that we wouldn't even were supposed to get. The company I'm working for now is the reason they recruited me, because we were stealing business away from them. This small little boutique firm. But we only had so much capacity, so we'd get it, but then we'd also have to deliver it.
Right.
So we'd get in this conundrum around, well, who's out, building the business? And so we weren't able to do that and make the money that we wanted to make.
Yeah.
And so that started to frustrate me. And so the things I remember, what I know now that I would do differently would be really laying out a better business plan around, I'm going to do these 3 things because I'm amazing at them. And then we need to find people who can do 5, 6, and 7, and then you can do 10.
Right.
And do those things. And I think the other thing for me was learning the difference between revenue and gross profit and net profit. Yeah. Of like, Uncle Sam said you made this much, but I didn't take home that much. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah.
And learning what a K1 was. And, all of those things, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it really, now as a senior salesperson in this organization, I'm working circles around a lot of people because of that experience. And I'm able to close bigger business than when I was in a small business that I, wouldn't even thought of because of the training and development I got as an entrepreneur.
Well, I could not agree more. And like one of the things I mentioned in my book that I wrote is that literally your years as an entrepreneur being self-employed are like measured in dog years. I mean, I truly believe that you get about 7 years experience for every 1 year that you're actually there. I mean, it is mind-blowing, and it does, like, whenever you go back to do things, like right now I'm doing some advisory work for a 40-year-old company. Now, it is a independently owned, family-owned business, but you just get to see things with such a broader perspective, you're a little calmer. I mean, you see things so differently. And so that's one of the things that I've always tried to explain to people that they think they want to jump out on their own. But I'm like, well, look before you leap and understand what you're getting yourself into, because you will not have that margin for error that you currently that you currently get to benefit from. The mistakes are much more consequential for sure. And now here's something that I would like, given your 30 some odd years of experience, you have seen, you been a success yourself. You've seen what makes others go from, I'm sure you've watched careers go from kind of entry to mid-level manager on
Yeah.
to the C-suite. You've watched that happen. For that young person that's listening, that's either about to finish undergrad or is in their first job, uh, what would you tell them as right now that during that early phase? Because I think I managed the first part of my career terribly. I really do. I think I was so cocky and so arrogant, and it was so easy for me to get any job I ever interviewed for that I was just like at a buffet, and I was like, "Oh, that looks exciting. I'll try that. That looks exciting." I think I managed it terribly. So, with that said, what would you tell that young person right now to start off on good footing? Here's what you should do. Say, first 5 to 7 years of your career.
Another great question, and I do this with my daughters. The big joke in my house is that, stop coaching me. I don't want to be coached.
Right.
First of all, and when I do some pro bono coaching for young professionals, and the first thing I say is you're divinely designed. Mm-hmm. You have 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Mm-hmm. So God is already telling you should be doing more observation than talking.
Amen.
Soak it in as much as possible. Listen and watch and learn from people who are doing what you want to do.
Right.
And be open to, you can't receive a gift with a closed fist, right? So be open to getting and soaking in that knowledge. That's what John Atkins was for me. I think, one of the biggest learning lessons for me as an entrepreneur was going in and elevating my conversation, because I'd never been around, senior level executives until I got into that entrepreneurial level and started coaching CEOs of small businesses. And so that piece, but early in my career of learning, you got to crave it. You got to crave those learning opportunities, and then be open to different possibilities, because my oldest daughter is a guided missile. I mean, she has her life planned out, and I'd love her for it, but I'm like, life is not a straight line at all. It is a squiggly line, and your ability to be agile, be open to creativity, that your destiny may take an alternative path that you never even thought about.
Right.
Be open to it and experiment early on in your career, because you can fall and get up when you're young, and those mistakes will benefit you in the long run. I think lessons that I have learned in doing the work, of when a lot of millennials, I don't like bad mouthing them, but this is one commonality thing I see of that sense of urgency and wanting to move quickly.
Yes.
Depth matters.
Yeah.
Depth of your experience, it matters when you start to move into senior level leadership roles. And that's where I see a lot of leaders falter, is they have no depth. Mm-hmm. They moved up quickly because they're smart, because they've taken advantage of opportunities and who they know, or they've been in the right place at the right time. But they didn't have tenure in a role to see a lot of different things happen. I was coaching a production engineer for a chemical company, and he was talking about one of the older guys that taught him so much around how things sound in the plant, as opposed to what the gauge says.
Right.
You don't get that, you don't get the experience unless you've been in a job for a while, where he was to go by the manual. And so for young professionals, I think lateral knowledge, lateral promotion is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not all promotion, vertical promotion is not the only thing.
Right.
And I think it will serve you well to be, ask yourself the question, if they were hiring someone to fill my position, would they use what I've done as an example of the absolute best way to do this job.
I like
If
that.
if you question that, then maybe you need a little bit more time. You need a little bit more time in that role.
Right.
And I think being open to development along the way is also the key. But a lot of young professionals are impatient around, and have a different view on what growth is. So, guy told me, you spend the first half of your life shortening the second half of your life.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth?
If you transition that into work, I
Yeah.
think that's true too. If
Yeah.
you don't spend the time in getting depth and experience, when you have the opportunity to lead, that leadership opportunity will be short because your incompetencies, your shortcomings, your gaps will show. You
Right.
can only put up that facade for so long.
Yeah.
And that's what you see of people where you look at their career, as a recruiter, I see, wow, you were there for 3 years. Tell me what you did. And then they tell me all these amazing things. And I'm like, well, in most roles, bar none, I would bet, a paycheck on this is that the first year you really didn't do a whole lot. It's the guy before you that probably either any accolades that you got,
Right.
that takes time.
Right.
So the second year you're really honing your skill set. And the third year is when you really make an impact.
Yeah.
In most cases,
Yeah.
there are exceptions to that, of course.
Right.
But on average, thing I learned about coaching is most people, that would be the other thing, and that thing I tell young people is most people are okay with being average.
Yeah.
That
Unfortunately.
was an epiphany for me.
Yeah.
In coaching is if they're doing okay, they're less likely to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
If they're doing, if pay is pretty good, for whatever their threshold is, they're not gonna do anything above and beyond that. It's the minority that will push beyond that. It's like, why does Michael Phelps need another friggin' gold medal? Why does he do it?
Yeah.
Why would Jordan need another championship? Why is Tom Brady still playing football?
Right.
It's like, dude, what else do you have to prove? But it's that gene that they have for excellence that I think pushes them, and unfortunately, very few people have that.
And do you feel like, Spencer, okay, based on what I've seen, and I don't want to generalize, but would you say that based on your experience, because you do interact with these professionals, both young and more senior, on a daily basis, that with quote unquote success almost becoming a bad word in America, would you say it's even harder to find that young, career-minded individual that's like, hey, Spencer, here's what I'm meeting you today, but I hope to be talking to you 10 years from now whenever I'm looking for my first senior level executive position, because this is where I'm going. I will be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company one day, or I will have my own firm that's doing $50 million in top line sales. Have you seen that kind of become rarer and rarer to find that Michael Phelps of the business world?
I think so. And in the definition of maybe how we're looking at it, of that individual having that drive individually, I think kids now, either going through college or through high school, what I've experienced with my daughter is that it's this group think, right? Of like, you can't stand out from the group. You're being selfish, or or you're trying to get too much attention. So yeah, I agree with you, and it drives me insane because that's not how I'm wired or how I was brought up. And I think within institutions, within colleges, that's what we're finding, because from my unique perspective as a recruiter, what I would see coming out of college is the lack of that, right? Mm-hmm. The lack of them having that drive to do beyond what you're asked to do.
Yeah.
Or for them to be able to even articulate when you ask that question, where do you want to be
Yeah.
in 3 years? There's some either canned answer or, disingenuous response that you're not getting at who they really are. They're just telling you what they read or what they was told to tell you, kind of thing. But yeah, I think I'm seeing less of that from those who I've been exposed to. And when you see it now, you're like, wow, I haven't seen that in a while.
Absolutely.
So it sticks out. And I think the pendulum is swinging back. It's this whole pandemic, I think, there's a transformation going on that is forcing people to get back to valuing human interaction.
Yes. Yes.
And seeing the value in it, that technology cannot take the place of that human interaction,
right,
on a daily basis. And that's going to be a blessing that's going to come out of this whole experience is I should value you as a human being, and I need you.
Mm-hmm.
This interaction from screen to screen, it's not enough.
Right. No, I couldn't agree more. And I saw it firsthand so my wife, we have a children's boutique here in Tyler that she has had now for 8.5 years, going on 9 years. And so when you're in a traditional brick and mortar business, it's upscale children's
Mm-hmm.
boutique with toys and clothes and everything. And it is against the law for customers to come into your store. You better get creative pretty quick. And by the way, when this starts happening, you do not have an e-commerce existence.
Yeah.
You don't have a website. How do you survive? Well, Gemlyn, my wife, she is so in tune, so in touch with her customers, and such an incredibly hard worker that literally, even with the inability for customers to come into our store, we still had an incredible Easter season because of her customers love interacting with her on a very personal level, and she knows them. She knows their children. I mean, there have, I tell this whenever I do social media posts all the time, and I talk about hot tots. I say, a lot of times we know about your child coming before your parents do, because the moms will call Gemlyn and say, hey, I just found out I'm pregnant, so I'm going to start needing to get some stuff before they've even announced it to the family. So she's literally watched some children grow up from the day they were born up until, going into now. She's had it long enough to where they'll be little junior high babies pretty soon. But anyway, so we've seen that's how she survived through this whole deal. We survived is by that very, very personal touch. And I agree. I don't want it to sound callous or anything like that, but just, I'm a optimistic guy. I'm a silver lining kind of guy. I think there are so many good things that are going to come as a result of this horrible catastrophe. I think it's exposing weaknesses that nothing forces you to correct a weakness like having it exposed. It's kind of like, right? It's, that box when you were moving that's been sitting there for 3 years. If the house is on fire and you trip on that box and fall, guess what? That box will finally get moved, right?
Yeah.
And I see that is that people are going to be rethinking how they do business. They're going to be, and I think it's for, like you talked about something that your idea journal. I do the same thing. I went through my morning routine here not too long ago. I posted a video on my ridiculously long and extensive morning routine. Had more results than almost any video I've ever posted. And one of the things I do, I took from James Altucher. If you ever, a great book, man, that I think you would enjoy is Choose Yourself by James Altucher.
Oh, wow.
After this pandemic, everyone listening, I did a book review on it. You should read Choose Yourself, because now, even more than when James wrote the book, is it prevalent? Because a lot of people are without jobs. They're having to get creative. This book talks about that. One of the things that he does on a daily basis is he comes up with 15 ideas. And he's like, most of them aren't that good. He said, but if I do that every day, if I'm going to have over 3,000 ideas a year, three of them are going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
And so exactly. And so I've adopted that is every morning as part of my routine now. 15 ideas, 10 new ways to make money, 10 ways to create content, 10 ways to break a habit, whatever the case may be. And so I think that on the other side of this, you're going to have people just as a mere act of survival realizing I'm going to have to start doing some things I've never done. I'm going to have to adopt some practices I've never adopted. I thank God, Spencer, that, for whatever reason, much like you, and I want to get into some of your personal disciplines, I think we're just wired to constantly self-improve.
Yeah.
So when something like this hits, hey, it hits us too. We suffer, and man, heaven forbid, one of our family members get ill. But I think we're a little bit better equipped because this is kind of the world in which we live. We like the challenge. We're doing things that a lot of people are having to do for the first time. So with that, tell me what is your morning routine? I love morning routines, and I guarantee you, someone like you have a morning routine. There's some guests I wouldn't ask that question because I can just tell they probably don't have a morning routine. What is your morning routine? And kind of tell the listener, what are the things that you do from a discipline standpoint to stay sharp, both mentally, spiritually, physically? What does that look like? So take us through the morning routine and then just some habits that you have to keep yourself sharp.
Yeah, it's such a interesting question you're asking, because it's something that I've always had, even as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Structure is very important to me.
Same here.
It's the only way that I've been able to be successful, because my mind wanders aimlessly.
Same.
I am definitely the guy who's like, ooh, shiny penny, ooh,
Same.
scroll.
Me too.
I hate clickbait and all that kind of stuff because it catches my attention. So
Right.
Structure is important to me. So I lived with my grandparents over the summers when I was a kid, and so they would always get up at like 5 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that's my internal clock. I just wake up usually 5:15. I just naturally wake up without a alarm clock.
Yep.
And so I'm always thinking mind, body, soul. I think you have to. So I have a devotional in the morning, or read something just I feel like to get my brain
Mm-hmm.
moving, and then I try to get my body moving, because I think that your mind cannot be sharp if your body's not.
Amen.
And so then I'll do some, I got now, have my ab wheel, my jump rope, and those are the things that I do at home. But even if I'm just taking a walk or something, I feel like you have to get your body moving. And I get a lot of my ideas from when I'm working out.
Yep.
I think it's the endorphins moving in your body, and it's just that energy that is released in you that it gets it moving. I always have a ton of ideas in the midst of that.
Same here.
And then I have to stay focused. I have to have a devotional. I'm faith. Believe in God. I believe He orders my steps. I believe He's the center of everything that I do. So I have to have that conversation with Him, either through some sense of prayer, some type of prayer, or through reading through the Bible, that it gives me something. So that all happens within about 90 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, around 6:30 or so, close to 7, I'm showered and ready.
Yeah.
So then I'm very action oriented, goal oriented. If I don't have a win in the day,
Yes.
I'm not in a good mood.
Same here.
It took me a while to actually understand that, and through self-assessment and growing, I learned that. So I'm a list maker. So I set up a list of what is it that I want to win today. It's not what I want to accomplish. And I play mind games with that, right? Of if I call on 20 prospects, I win today.
Yeah.
If I get this person's contract done today, I win today. But I have to have a win.
Yeah.
I post on LinkedIn only when I feel like I have something to say, but I have this thing called grit that I,
Yes.
sort of, I'll change it up sometimes, right? Of like greatness requires intense tenacity,
Uh-huh.
and I'll find an example of that, and I will speak to how that impacted me that day.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have enough discipline to do it all the time, and I feel like there's so much out there.
Yeah.
But I try to have some kind of, I tell this to my daughters all the time, of give something back to the house.
Mm.
So there's got to be some kind of activity where it's not about Spencer, but it might be washing the dishes to help my wife out. It might be folding the laundry. It might be cutting the grass, or something where at the end of the day, when I sit down and I'm trying to relax, I can say, I did win. I
Right.
won today.
Right.
I finished my one thing. I talked to the Lord today, and that's immensely important to me, because I don't know how anybody is getting through this situation if they don't have faith.
Oh, I know.
And I gave something back to my family. If I did those things, if in terms of my rituals, if I did those things, it was a good day, regardless of whether I sold a big account or not, or those kind of things. If I hit those marks, then and that keeps my stress down. It keeps me focused. It gives me structure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm the exact same way. As a matter of fact, one of the things that has kind of really amped it up for me is I used to be a big watch guy. I was a big I collected watches. I actually did some advisory work for a company called Crown and Caliber, a fantastic company in Atlanta that does certified pre-owned luxury watches. And but I got rid of my watch collection and I got an Apple Watch. And closing those 3 rings every day, which is your exercise, your stand, and your active calorie ring.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, because I keep a habits board, man. I've got a whiteboard by my desk, and one of the, there you go, man. I'm telling you, it's one of those things. I'm like last night, I crushed my calories. I had crushed, I mean, I'm always going to, I think it's set, and you can't change it, that the ring's going to close if you have 30 minutes of exercise. So that's real easy for me every day. But my stand goal I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. What in the world did I do that I did not hit my stand goal? It just flustered me. And so, but I'm with you. And so many people, it just blows my mind that they will go through a day and have no concept of whether this day was better than the previous, or is it any better or worse than what they planned for the next. And I don't mean that from a judgment standpoint, but I always try to explain to people, hey, I get it. It's kind of crazy. I have this long daily habit scorecard where I've got checks on my whiteboard every day. I'm not saying people should do that, but at least have some sense of how well are you doing on a daily basis, because at some point we're all going to be sitting there. I always tell people there is no pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. You just get to pick up gold along the way, and then whenever you get to, there's some point, if you are fortunate enough to just die of natural causes and you've lived a life that is rich and you're old, you just get to sit there and then you collect the pot of gold as you go.
As you go.
And if you're not paying attention to that, then guess what? You're going to show up. That day will come. You will, if you live that long. And you're going to look down, your pot's going to be empty, and all you're going to see is this trail of opportunities where the gold, you never picked it up along the way. And it blows my mind when people live like that. So I'm with you. I have to have something that says, this was a good day. And brother, you want to see me? And if I don't do my morning routine, because that's my quick win. If I get through my morning routine, if I read my Bible, if I do my meditating, if I do my journaling, if I get my workout in, then okay. The rest of the day, I'm just going to kind of collect the pieces of gold as I go. But my wife even knows. She's like, you've got to get your morning routine. You are no fun to be around if that gets off.
Exactly. There's two times when you don't want to be around me. One is when I'm hungry, and two is if I haven't gotten a workout in. I mean, it just
same here.
And I think what you're saying is absolutely true. I see so many people just kind of floating through life.
Yeah.
and letting life happen to them.
Yeah.
And those are individuals. If I have a weakness or a flaw in my personality, is that I find it very difficult to be around people who are not goal oriented.
Mm-hmm.
And even in my coaching practice, I have a survey that I send out to prospects who want me to coach them, and they have to answer those questions. I have to know that they're in it for for what they want, not what they think I need to tell them that they want.
Right.
But it's like I'm just a facilitator. I don't have all the answers for you, but I can facilitate really well and help you, protect yourself from yourself. And so I need to be around those types of people.
Yeah. I'm with you. And it goes back to what we were talking about, which is interesting because I don't color outside the lines. I'm a rule follower. My blog is called Make Your Own Rules, which sounds like it's probably some kind of rebellious, contrarian type deal, but it's not the case at all. It's what I try to tell, and going back to young people, and even that 55-year-old that that's just been in a rut, like we talked about earlier. Get out of the matrix. A lot of the rules you're following are not rules at all. They're just societal norms. That's right. It's like all of a sudden, that you've been in prison and the door's been open for 2 years. You just didn't walk through it because you didn't think you were supposed to. Or one of my favorite examples that I've always used is back when they would train circus animals, when they were baby elephants, they would tie them to a stake. And as the elephant grew, the stake never changed. Now, the rope might have gotten a little longer, but the elephant was trained to believe that he or she could not pull that stake out of the ground, even though it becomes this enormous animal that could easily pull it out of the ground. That's how I think so many of us, we live our lives. That we allow society to set these rules and norms that we follow, and so then we become on autopilot, thinking. Right. And when in reality, if you will step out of that matrix and go start creating your own habits, creating your own destiny, creating your own norms and principles and disciplines, man. And then all of a sudden, what's really cool about it for me, and what I'm waking up to, Spencer, year by year, is that becomes the reward and the satisfaction. I get more satisfaction out of being able to go crush 500 calories in a workout than I would ever get out of being able to get behind the wheel of a Maserati or something that, again, society is in love with, but I don't need to go fast. It's metal and it's beautiful. I can appreciate it, but I've set rules for myself that do not apply to the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And if I could go back to your question around, telling some of the younger people, is like, I wish I would have gotten that principle.
Oh, yes.
Really.
Yes.
Is like, get it sooner. I just love the fact that my daughter is saving. She's into stocks, and she's doing those things that I wish I would have known, that I had someone to tell me that stuff when I was younger. Mm-hmm. Because golly, man, does it make the back half of your life so much easier?
Absolutely.
And just that part you were saying of, not to get super spiritual on you, but I think, Jesus said he came to give us life and give it to us more abundantly.
Absolutely.
So I think when you let go of all that other junk, mm-hmm. you just live a more abundant life when those things aren't customary. And it's a difference. People notice it.
Absolutely.
I smile all the time, and it kind of bugs me sometimes when I'm not smiling.
Yeah.
People are like, is something wrong with you? What, are you in a bad mood today? I was like, no, my cheeks are just tired. Can I just relax my cheeks for a few minutes?
I'm the same way, man. That's what happens to me if I show up and I'm not the guy, kind of bringing in all the sunshine and the parade. People are like, are you okay? What's wrong with Jason? Nothing, I can't be on all the time. I get it. I get it. Well, okay, so going back to some personal disciplines, give me some books that, like, everyone that you think, man, if you go through life without reading these 2 or these 3 books or this one book, what is it? And why?
Gosh, there's so many. Let's see.
I know. I personally hate that question because it's a challenging one, but I love it whenever I.
Gosh, I mean, yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, there's so many of. Trying to think of one that's really kind of changed me some. Oh gosh. Okay, well there's a lot. There's a lot. But here's a I'll base that question on um what I've passed along, a
Uh-huh.
book that I've passed along a lot. And I'm
Perfect.
trying to remember who the author is right at the moment, but it's this book called is it 2 Degrees?
I've heard of it. I have not read it.
It is, and it's a short book.
Okay.
And I've given that to pretty much everyone I've coached for the most part, and it's so sad I can't remember the author at the moment. But the basis of this book is 2 degrees more of effort every day,
Love it.
and the difference that makes. And what's so dear to me is it captures the essence of who I am and who I kind of want to be. Is what I do every day is I wake up thinking, how can I be better than I was yesterday? And it doesn't have to be this humongous dramatic difference.
Right.
It just has to be 2% more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And people that we've coached from that book is I've seen their growth. Right. We just kind of set these goals of like, okay, you're just going to do a couple of more. You're going to talk to 2 more people than you did yesterday. You're going to give that compliment to your direct report that you didn't give. You're going to read a couple more pages from this book. You're going to just whatever that incremental growth is.
Yeah.
And it's like this psychic compound interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of how that adds up over time.
Yes. Yes.
It's incredible to me that I've seen, it's almost like a financial concept, right? Of compound interest, of just keep adding and it grows. Your principal grows over time.
Right.
And that has had an impact on me personally, professionally, spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of being able to do that on a daily basis.
Right.
And that's the thing about life is not really complicated.
Right.
We overcomplicate it. But that's one book, and I'll forward that to you because I know I have it up there. I just can't. That's something I can't see anymore.
Well, and I'm looking. Well, I definitely will try to. I'm going to find that one. I want to read that, and because I've gotten into like both for being, as far as coaching business. Have you read the 4 Disciplines of Execution? Okay.
Yeah.
That's my latest craze, man, as far as actual coaching and advising. Now, that's a kind of a different, it's not such a one-on-one executive deal. It's more of a team type, moving towards goals or whatever. But that's one that I have really I'm absorbing that. I'm actually doing I'm implementing it for a company right now. And that's one that I've loved.
Yeah, Execution, The Art of Getting Things Done is another book just around that piece.
Love
Is
it.
awesome.
Yes.
Ram Sharon.
Yes.
That's a great book. Those things around getting the things done. I mean, I was trying to think of another book. You just like sparked it in me now. Like what I was trying to think of what the other book was. But I'll follow up on you on that one because here it is. Hold on 1 second. Here it is. So you gotta get. So this is another coach. I told you coaching. So Leadership from the Inside Out by Kevin Cashman.
Yeah.
Have you read that?
No,
book?
I have not.
So if you're coaching people, this is a great coaching guide.
Okay.
I think his company got bought by Korn Ferry.
Okay.
But he has just these. What I love about what really caught me on this book was when I first started reading. He says, if you don't get this concept, go back, read the chapter again, and do not move forward in this book until you get this.
Love it.
I mean, that just jumped out at me. But he has these things about getting inside of your head and getting out of your own way. but it's almost like a self-guided coaching book. Like you could read this book and coach yourself.
Fantastic.
You know, that one I think is another one I love, is awesome.
Fantastic. All right, I'm going to order. Says I'm going to order both of those.
I have enjoyed this conversation. I gotta jump here in about 10 minutes.
No, man, that's perfect. Okay, final question in, and I want to say thank you so much, Spencer, for this time. It has been phenomenal. This has been a lot of fun. But last question. One book I know that you probably read, because again, it's kind of like it's interesting. You put a group of people together. They all have some sorts of commonality. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I know. I can tell you've read it. So you remember there's the scene where Covey talks about walking by a church. He hears music. He goes in. He realizes that he's at a funeral. Then all of a sudden he realizes he's at his own funeral. And that's where he tells you, put down the book and truly stop and think, what do you want said about you at your funeral? So, Spencer, whenever this ride is done, what do you want said about you?
Man, you ask great questions.
I'm getting pretty decent at it. I'm trying.
Yeah, I would say that he was authentic. He was a guy who said what he meant, and you could see it in his life. Mm. So authenticity is very important to me. That you can see parts of me in my children, the good parts. Mm-hmm. I guess I should clarify that, right? That the people I was around were better because we knew each other. Mm. You know, so I added something to their life.
Yeah.
That I was fun to be around and added some joy, you know, and made them smile at least once when they were around me. That I loved the Lord, and it showed in my life, you know, that I was consistent in something, you know, that they could see in my life, that, you know, I lived a consistent life that showed that I loved the Lord. And when I say make a difference, that I made a difference, I don't need to have statues, you know, or buildings, those kind of things, but that something I did made a difference. Yeah. You know, that I made an impact, that I didn't just live my life floating through. Those would probably be the top things that come to mind for me. Because, you know, I'm 54 years old now, and it's so funny. You start, you know, after 50, you start to think about those kinds of things.
Sure.
And now, you know, wow, will I live another 54? Maybe, you know, but you're like, there's a sense of urgency now in my life to go, okay, I need to make a difference, you know, not only in my immediate 4 walls of my home, but, you know, we were designed with a purpose to impact this world for whatever gifts that we were given. And now I'm asking myself, have I used my gifts? Have I maximized them in a way? You know, because I understand what they are.
Right.
And now I'm trying to implement them. So long answer to a short question, but
I think it's fantastic. Well, I can tell you this.
You, I mean, what are yours?
That he was a good father. That's really, because I did. It was one of the few times that when I read a book that I never do that. I never go through the exercise. I just don't. I'll do that at some point. But that was one, and it for self-reflection, I was like, okay, what do I want? And the older I get, it's really just, if there's something I want it to be known for, I came up with, I want to be a good dad. Many of the similar things that you did. I want to leave people better than I found them, meaning that they were better having been around me and been a part of my life than they were before they were, you know, or if they had never met me. I try to, whenever I meet an individual, I want to know about them. You know, I'm going to ask more questions of
Right.
them than I give answers about me. I'm my least favorite subject to talk about in a conversation, not just because that's absolutely the truth, but also because I want that person to walk away and go, I feel like Jason Wright knows who I am,
Yeah.
as a result. And but if I could just sum it up into one thing, it is that, as my daughters one day when I'm gone, when they use the Google of their mind, when they Google their memories, I want them and anyone around that knew me to go, one thing about him, he was a good father and husband also.
Sure.
I think
Sure.
one goes with the other, but that's kind of what it came down to for me. So I appreciate you asking. Nobody's ever thrown the question back at
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And we're both dads of girls. I mean, and that's a whole different story. The whole thing with Kobe and
Oh
his daughter.
yeah,
I just like it's a special relationship to have daughters and dads. It just is
it
really,
is. It is.
and I've enjoyed this experience, and I wish you nothing but success, and I hope that we continue to uh, connect.
Hey
And
man, it's iron sharpens iron. And,
absolutely.
and look, let me tell you something. Once again, I owe John Atkins. I have been listening to John Atkins' advice now for going on maybe almost 23 years, I think. And once again, I owe him a big thank you because he was absolutely
Absolutely.
correct. Well, I'm so glad to know you better, Spencer. Thank you for taking this time, brother. And God bless you, my man.
Same to you, man. Have a good evening.
You too.
Hey, folks, thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Texas Titans podcast. This has been a Texas Titans media production. Drew Koch, producer. Please consider following us on social media. On Instagram, it's Jason Wright Now. On Facebook, it is Jason Wright TX. Also, check out what we've got over at jasonwrightnow.com, including my Make Your Own Rules blog. Thanks for listening. Go crush it.